Hi, everybody. Welcome. Come on in, get settled. Good to see everybody joining us. I'll just give you a quick couple seconds to sort of get situated here and we'll get started. I see you all entering the room. This is wonderful. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'll let the rest of everybody join and jump in. I'm Nicole Darling. I'm the head of career success here at Nexford University. Welcome to Funding the Future, what startups and learners must know in an AI-driven world. And I'm really happy to introduce Shali Reed. She is the Chief Operating Officer and Executive Producer at The Reeder. It's a content strategy studio that helps B2B teams grow audience, brand, and pipeline with really unforgettable content. The Reader's community reaches over 100,000 professionals across LinkedIn and its newsletter. And Shali has led customer success and operations at companies like iMerit, Appen, and she's active as an investor and an advisor. She also holds an MBA from the University of San Francisco. So welcome, Shali. It's so great to have you with us today.
It's so great to be here, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me.
You're sure. So we're going to get started. I have a lot of questions for you, and I know our attendees have questions that they want to ask as well. So if you do have questions, you can put it in our Q&A, and then we'll hopefully get to all of them. But I have some questions that I want to start off with, sort of lay the groundwork. So to start with, for those who are unfamiliar, can you walk us through The Reeder, what services you've built, and how you're helping companies transform their content?
Absolutely, yeah. So The Reeder is a business my husband and I went all in into about 2 years ago. So we left our corporate jobs. He was working at a big startup. I was working at iMerit at the time. And we just said, we're sitting here and building other people's dreams. What if we double down and bet on ourselves? What could we accomplish? And so therefore, we went all into The Reeder. And so The Reeder, we do content strategy for B2B tech companies. We also help executives with their LinkedIn growth program. So whether that is building their own personal brand on LinkedIn or helping them build the strategy around their corporate brand on LinkedIn, we can do both of those things. We also help companies do content strategy audits. So that's taking all of the content that you have developed, understanding what's working, what's not working, and some tangible recommendations on how you can improve on that. And then we're a media house as well. So we have a podcast called Read Between the Lines. My husband's last name is Reed. Therefore, you get The Reeder, you get Read Between the Lines, and you get kind of every form of the word read going forward. And so our podcast is a deep dive into creatives that are willing to take really big risks on themselves. So you will see marketing leaders and professionals there, but you will also see photographers, content creators from a social media perspective. So really anybody who we feel is an up and coming influencer or leader that has a really exciting story and that is doing something interesting, something a little bit more novel than what's happening in kind of B2B marketing today. And we want to just help amplify their voice.
That's fantastic. I know I told you in the past that I've watched your husband's podcast.
Yeah.
It's so dynamic, it's so entertaining, and just full with such great information. So I definitely recommend it to people to go take a look on YouTube. Now, I know you also, this is sort of a side question to that, you also do a program for individuals who are looking to boost their LinkedIn profile and promote their business on LinkedIn, right? Is there a program you do? Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that's our LinkedIn cohort. So this is for anybody who is focused on growing their LinkedIn following. And so it's a 4-week program, and we host it a couple times a year. So our last one was, I believe it was in like June or July. And then we're going to host another one at the beginning of October this year. And then we're trying to make it more of a recurring theme, but that'll happen kind of in 2026. And so this program, it's a one-to-many program, but by many, I mean it's a pretty small class. So we only have about 20 students along with Devin, and we really sit down and break down the fundamentals of building a LinkedIn strategy, a trusted audience, and then how to kind of capitalize on that moving forward. So we start with understanding what's your one word, what is your reason for posting, and why are you passionate about that one word. And then we talk through your specific LinkedIn profile. So what looks good, what are areas of improvements, where can you add clarity so that when people land on your page, they know exactly what you're about and what your business is doing. And then we give our users homework. So there's very much a process of you have to get past the I feel too cringe to post on LinkedIn, because that is a problem everybody faces regardless of their title. And we work with our members to really build the confidence in creating the posts, refining, editing the posts, and then publishing the post. And so our success story from the first cohort that we did was that in the first session, we talked about clarity on the LinkedIn page. And one of our users went ahead and clarified his message, and he got an inbound lead the same day. So I'm sure there were a lot of other factors at play, but the fact that that was a really immediate win was so awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know that's so important, that program that you offer, because there is such a push right now for LinkedIn and promoting yourself on that platform as opposed to other platforms. It seems like everything else has been a little bit, washed out, but LinkedIn is really kind of hitting its stride of late with promotional stuff for people. So I love that you have that for business owners and even professionals. All right, let me ask you another question. What motivated you to join your husband, Devin, and become a COO at The Reeder back in 2017? And what gap did you actually see in the market that your company could fill?
Yeah, so when we started in 2017, both of us were working corporate jobs. So The Reeder was very much a side project. My husband went to school for writing. He was in sales for his first 6 years, and then he moved over into marketing. And so we knew that we wanted to build something. We just quite didn't know what yet. And so he started that off writing blog posts. So fast forward a couple years later, and life really comes at you fast. So we had 2 kids. And after each child, I was like, why am I going back to work? Why am I, spending 50, 60 hours making somebody else's dream come true, putting a bunch of dollars in their pocket, and then looking at my bank account thinking, when is this thing going to grow? And so both my husband and I, thankfully, are very ambitious individuals. And then we had a third pregnancy. This part's a little bit heavy, so sorry guys, but life is heavy sometimes. We had a third pregnancy. She was a stillborn at 32 weeks, nothing we could do, but really after that, and that happened when I was 39, and in 2024, late 2023. And I just really was like looking at myself in the mirror, wondering like, what am I doing? Like, I have my children. I want to be more present for them. I want to be around. I want to work, but I want to work on my own terms. And I was getting stuck in a lot of mundane conversations in the corporate world that just weren't going anywhere because of any reasons, right? Like you maybe don't have clarity at the executive level, or, everybody has a villain in the office. And so sometimes you have great ideas, but then there's somebody else stopping or blocking your idea, and that just causes frustration. And so after the loss of our third child, I was like, I am just not doing this. I, don't want to go back. I want to work, but I want to work on our own dreams. And so my husband and I talked, and then we said, cool, let's go full time into The Reeder and let's build that out. And so we've been doing that full time since January of, what year are we in, 2025? So January of 2024. So it's been a little over a year, and it's been great because I think when you start a business, in the beginning, it's a catch-all because you have mouths to feed and you have a mortgage to pay. But through the year, we have really refined what our offerings are. We have really refined the things that we are passionate about and that we are committed to. And we have really put our family first. So not only do we have time to drop off and pick up our kids at school, but we have created this life where we can do the podcast and our kids can be present for the podcast and they can learn as well, right? And so we'll talk about this later, but as we talk about AI in the workplace and what that means, I think being a creative and having an audience is going to be a big differentiator going forward. And so we want to start showing that to our children today. because I don't know how the world is going to evolve for them tomorrow. But if they have this background of can create content or can put content together from a production perspective or can come up with the ideas and maybe write the stories, those are assets that they will be able to take with them going forward.
That's great. So I think this next question kind of leads into that. So as COO, what were the key operational challenges that you faced in the last 2 years, scaling the Reeder from the early stages to the sustainable growth that you've seen now, especially in the content consulting business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think two parts to that question. So the first, on the operational front, we didn't know what we didn't know. And so I thankfully have a customer success and operations background, seen a couple startups through IPOs or acquisitions, and was very much always a part of the go-to-market team. And so that part came a little bit easy because it was like working at any other startup. And thankfully I had experience in that phase. I think the surprises about owning your business you don't realize are more from a let's say, for example, like filing your taxes perspective. So you're filing taxes as both an employer and as an employee. Did you know that? No, I didn't know that. So like that's crazy. Or like the insurance plan that you're choosing for your family, or how much is actually a tax write-off, because so many things are a tax write-off. And so in terms of like setting up the business, because Devin had a sales background, we're really strong at building a sales pipeline, executing against the sales calls, closing the deals. Because I have the account management background, really good at understanding the customer journey, making sure, the SOW looks clean, making sure we have a process for offboarding clients when the engagement is done. And so we really just took all of the strengths that we had and we put them together. And then all of the weaknesses that we had, those are things that we're constantly working through. And that is the iteration and the evolution of the business. And we use AI for that a lot. There are a lot of things that I don't know as a business owner, or there are a lot of things I'm learning for a first time. And AI is my friend and is a very helpful tool in understanding, like, at least give me a framework or show me an example of somebody who's done it before, so that I at least get some sort of spark in my head on like how I should do it going forward or how I should suggest it going forward. So that's from an operational piece. And then from a content perspective, so content has been around for a really long time, but I feel like content is getting a rebrand right now on LinkedIn, specifically through influencer marketing, right? And so we saw influencer marketing was really big on Instagram, really big on TikTok, really big on YouTube. And now I think LinkedIn is having its moment of figuring out, like, what does that mean? Well, really good influencer marketing isn't just about how many followers the person has, right? It's about, did they build a trusted audience and community? And are they a subject matter expert, right? Because bless her heart, but I don't think Kim Kardashian can sell Adobe software, Like, I don't think she has the first idea on how to do that. Can they get creative with the campaign? 100%, right? But would you rather have somebody who is an expert on, I don't know what Adobe sells. Let me use a different example. Like
graphic designer or creative.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like the creatives, right? So it would make more sense to me if there was a creative who's a subject matter expert in all things creative. Adobe just happens to be one of them. And then that's a person that I trust because I've been following their journey for a long time, right? And I'm going to trust them more if they're on LinkedIn and I've been following that journey, because to me, LinkedIn feels like a professional networking platform, right? Thankfully, you actually see a lot less negative comments, I would say, on LinkedIn as compared to some of the other social platforms. And it's because everybody is coming to LinkedIn with the mindset of growth, of development, of learning, of getting better at their craft. And so then that's really how influencer marketing and content marketing is having a moment. And so Devin, he was the head of content at a company called Gong. I don't know how many people have heard of it, but they're in the revenue intelligence space. And then after that, he was head of content at a company called Clary. They're in the rev ops space. And a lot of what I've learned about content, a lot of what I've learned about marketing has been through sitting in on his, calls, presentations. And I truly believe, after going to some of these conferences, that content especially in the age of AI and mundane M dashes, really is your differentiator. And if you can couple that with influencer marketing, I think influencer marketing is the next evolution that a lot of these enterprise companies have to think about, because LLMs are taking away your Google paid ads budget, right? You're not hitting your metrics from a paid campaign perspective anymore, because a lot of people are going to ChatGPT or Claude or DeepSeek or wherever, right? How do you compete with that? Actually, you have to bring the human element back into the fold. How do you do that? You have to work with influencers to get there, because not only will you be able to cross-pollinate their networks and their communities with your brand, but if they're a subject matter expert, like, you are really amplifying your brand through that influencer marketing as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And when we talk about AI, and people are, I think the first reaction is people are so worried who's going to lose their job because AI is going to take it. But what I think I found, what you just sort of spoke about, is the human element is being highlighted more than ever with AI. So that, the thing that people were the most afraid of is actually going to be the most important, because AI can't replace human beings and that perspective and that influencer sort of marketing. So I love that you said that. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your funding.
Yeah.
And specifically, when you're evaluating startups in 2025, what are the key factors that make you say yes versus no? I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to know, what makes someone say yes to them, and how can founders better position themselves for that yes as opposed to a no?
Absolutely. So I think for me, so Devin and I evaluate companies together, first off. So he comes in from a sales and marketing perspective. So he's looking at pipeline numbers, he's looking at revenue growth, he's looking at the content engine and saying, like, is there a clear message? Can the sales team execute on this message? And what does it look like when they do execute on the message? For me, I focus on the retention aspect of it, right? So what's your revenue, recurring revenue look like? What's your customer satisfaction look like, right? And so we're looking at it from multiple perspectives before we are willing to make an investment. And for us, 100% of the time, we are testing the product out ourselves, because we are long-term tech startup employees. Like, if I can't leverage and use your product, if I can't be passionate about communicating your product to the market because there is no differentiator, I can't in good faith stand behind that. However, if you have something that is truly revolutionary, so Fathom, for example, right? So a lot of companies were doing calls, no big deal, call recording. I remember when call recording first came out, and the big objection there was people would not let us record the calls because of compliance, because of X, Y, and Z, whatever. Actually, we all learned how to get over those pain points and say there is so much more value in a call being recorded and being able to go back and reference that call to understand the nuances of that call, that I don't care about this objection of I don't want to be recorded. I would actually have the call recording. So then we look at, all of the companies who have been erected since then, and you're looking for differentiators. And so what I really like about Fathom is they were one of the first to add AI into the mix, right? They were some of the first to say, okay, we have this call recording, and now let's go ahead and extract actionable insights. And what I really like is they tell me, like, oh, you missed this pause between this sentence and this sentence. And actually, maybe that means that the buyer is skeptical, right? So, oh, now you're adding human psychology to the mix, right? So Fathom is doing something so interesting where they are able to capture notes on human emotions. They're able to capture they're reading between the lines, right? And that is quite attractive, because a lot of companies aren't doing that, and they're surfacing that. And so for us, that was a no-brainer, because not only were we using the tool, we really liked it, and we already saw the differentiators, and their customer retention is amazing, right? So it's a no-brainer in that sense to say, okay, this makes absolute sense. If they want an investment, we want to invest with this company because we think it's a winner. I think the market though is in like a really funky place. Companies are scared to IPO, VCs are scared to invest dollars, and it makes sense because AI has really shaken things up. And so we don't know what is, a costume on a chat GPT versus what is a real differentiator in the market that is separating themselves from the other companies and the competitors. And the market is really saturated, right? Because there's a lot of thought leaders saying there's space for 50 companies in one category. I don't know that we need 50 companies in one category, but that's what some prominent folks are saying. And so you're seeing a lot of these companies pop up, and it's really hard to figure out who to invest in because of all of the noise.
Right. So, what do you think are some common mistakes when someone's pitching an idea to you that people make? And I guess also I still want to cover, is it possible for someone to be too aggressive when they come at you with an idea or a potential investment idea?
100%. I would say most of the pitches that we get are too aggressive, like the cold outreach is just like a little bit more than I want, and it's a little bit more aggressive than I need. And I think, when you look at it from their perspective, like it is their job to pitch and sell you the hardest that they can so that you come back for a second conversation. And so I know for me, like, because I was in CS for so long, I don't appreciate those pitches. I appreciate the long-term play. I appreciate I'm not saying you need to wine and dine me, but like, I'm not writing you a check in one conversation, And so, I think that, again, like back to AI, right? Like AI has made it really easy to just send out cold outreach without really thinking about how to customize it and how to make it unique to that individual. But then sometimes people who are using a human first approach, maybe they're using AI to write it, but they're also doing more research before they're reaching out, can land the call, And I have had a few friends that I have honestly sat and listened to their pitches. And, sometimes you hear them and you're like, oh, I don't think you know everything about your business yet, right? Like, I think you have some more homework you need to do because I'm asking you kind of simple, basic questions about maybe your TAM, your total addressable market, or I'm asking you about, your CAC, your customer acquisition cost, and you don't quite have an answer. So that to me doesn't actually show me confidence. It shows me that you need to do a little bit more homework before you come on. I also can't stand when somebody just sends me their pitch deck. Like, don't just send me the pitch deck.
Yeah.
You have not earned, you have not earned enough time from me for you to just send me a pitch deck and expect that I go through it and then offer you feedback or write you a check.
Right.
I can't get behind that.
Yeah,
As a CM, I can't get behind it.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a venture capitalist, you're just not sitting there with an open checkbook waiting for someone to send you a pitch deck. And
Yeah, absolutely not.
so there's a lot bigger process. What's the proper way that someone who is interested in trying to find some funding should approach a venture capitalist? Is that just a quick call or, bringing some interest?
Yeah, so I also don't know why I feel like people don't want to pick up the phone as much. So I don't know if it's a phone call, but if I was looking to raise a round of funding, I would actually start slow and be planting seeds for a long time. So I would be engaging with the LinkedIn content so that they remember who I am and how I show up, right? I would be offering value statements or value pieces to them without asking for anything in return. And then once I have built some rapport, I would then like slowly ease into it, but also gauge their level of interest. So if I feel like they're not super interested right now, I'm probably going to pump the brakes. Because a no is not a no is a not now. And that is completely okay. I get it. People have a lot going on. And so sometimes it's not the right moment to engage. However, if I am continuously leaving a trail and they are picking up that trail and following me, then I know that they're interested and I know that I just need to get in front of them. And for me, I prefer the face-to-face meeting, right? Because so much gets lost in translation over the phone, over a Zoom. But like if I'm sitting with you face to face and we're just focused on each other, it's going to be much easier for me not only to share my idea with you, but to then be able to talk you through all of the specifics you need to know before I'm asking you to make an investment, right? And that's
Right.
another thing. Like, I'm not just pitching to get a check. I'm saying I want you not only for what you can bring from a monetary perspective, but also what your brain brings to the table, right? Because I want to be able to bounce ideas off of you. I want to be active in this relationship, unless they're just looking for a silent partner, which is also completely fine. But for us, like, we really want to create this community and this shared experience that only a few of us are getting to share at the same time, right? And so, the saying is like, if you want to go fast, or go alone, and then if you want to go far, go together, right? And so, for us, like, we're just putting the building blocks down so that our future selves in 20 years can look back and say, like, wow, okay, like, we're proud of the things that you guys did, and we like the way you set us up for success.
That's great. Thank you for that. I'm going to remind our viewers to, if you have a question, you can throw it in the Q&A, and we're going to take questions in about, I would say, 15 minutes or so. So I will keep those on the side, and I'll ask just a few more questions that I have. Let's switch to as an advisor for businesses. How do you typically support founders or early stage teams? Especially in building customer-centric operations and go-to-market execution? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's also twofold, right? So it depends on what type of advisory they want. Sometimes the advisory is just at the executive level and it's a sounding board for the executive. So, you're a thought leader and a partner on a level where you're not actually having to execute. And then sometimes you're an advisor on a level where you are executing. And so that is when you are really ingrained with the team. You are understanding the nuances of that team, and you are really diving in deep to their content and then figuring out how can we streamline these processes? How can we create more efficiencies? Where are things repeatable and scalable, and how can we leverage those things? And so advisory looks different on different fronts. And so the stuff that I do with women in sales is more of the former. So it's sitting as a thought leader with the CEO there, and like giving ideas about events, retreats, things like that. And then we work with other companies where we're advisors, and we're really focused on helping their marketing team. So for example, it's a marketing team of 3 individuals. One of them is the VP of marketing. And so not only do they need the strategic advice, but they need the tactical advice as well, to say, okay, we saw that you launched X program, like, let's dive deeper into the copy and see, where the conversions fell off. Or you maybe don't know how to track something, like, this is how we think about tracking things, and here's something that you can leverage and try. So the advisor role kind of just depends on what the company is looking for. We like to be really hands-on, but some people don't need us to be really hands-on, and that's okay. But we're there to support those companies kind of how they need to be supported, and help them build the programs that they need with the expertise that we have.
Great. So you juggle a lot of roles: COO, investor, advisor, and don't forget mom. How do you manage your time and your priorities? And what frameworks help you switch effectively between all of these different roles that you do so exceptionally well?
Yeah, so I don't know that I'm the healthiest example here, but for me, like, I'm always just like trying to find pockets of time to work when my kids are not around. So this year I got so lucky, both my kids are in school for a couple hours a day. And so I have gotten a few hours of time back to myself every day, and that really allows me to sit down and prioritize. We also do a lot of planning. And so at the end of September, we're going into our 2026 planning. What is our business going to look like? What are the things that we want to focus on? What are the things that we are doing that we don't need to focus on because they don't bring in a high amount of revenue? Where are we making sure that we make time for the creatives that we want to build and the output that we actually want to do that drives our passion? And so, yeah, it's honestly just like finding a couple moments here and there and just constantly moving. I am not a task list, to-do list writer. I feel like that just takes more time. Instead, I'm just kind of like, okay, I know I need to get through X things. And, outside of all this, like I am also, planning the kids' activities and managing the birthday parties and the dinner schedule, right? And so you're just constantly doing a lot. My sister jokes that I'm a high functioning depressed person. I don't think I'm depressed, but she's just like, I don't know how you can like remember so much stuff without writing it down. I also don't know how I can do that. I don't recommend it. Devin likes to put everything as a
Yeah.
calendar invite, which I also find kind of annoying because I'm like, I can't, I feel so restricted living by a calendar. But I think you prioritize your day on a day-to-day basis, and that is something that I learned as a CSM because I didn't know which account was going to be on fire. I didn't know, which module was going to be broken. I didn't know X, Y, and Z, right? Like you just walk in and you just
Yeah.
don't know what's happening. And so that context shifting is something that I've been doing for a very long time. And so that part came a little bit more natural. But yeah, I mean that's I'm just a little bit all over the place and that just works for me. I don't recommend it for anybody else, but it's what helps keep me focused when I'm constantly thinking about like what's the next thing that we're focusing on.
And I love that you and your husband have like two different sort of approaches to it.
Oh, yeah,
Organized
100%.
chaos and just, type A organized, creating
Yeah,
calendar
yeah,
invites on his calendar, which I appreciate. I am also of that club. But there are people that really function very well, which it seems like, your experience has taught you to put out those fires. What's the priority and really understanding the priority each day and being
mhm.
able to tackle that, which is such a huge, gift to have to be able to
Yeah.
recognize that.
And I'll add, like, you can create playbooks and process efficiencies in everything that you do, right? So, for example, like, I get groceries off of Instacart, and Instacart knows what my grocery list already is, so it's a push of a button there. Or I could set that up as a recurring kind of process, right? You could do the same with I don't know, your laundry detergent. Like there's a lot of ways in your life that you can automate things. And so for us, like our core responsibility is every Tuesday, my husband and I have a business meeting and we're talking through everything, right? So numbers, outstanding projects, any customer service issues, finance issues, and then we use that as the template for the rest of the week on the things that we need to do, as well as like, how are we going to plan out, for example, shooting the next season of Read Between the Lines. And if we're going to do that in Q2, we need to start thinking about and securing guests for, that 6 months from now today,
Yeah.
because we have to map that out and align that out. So it's a lot of work. But again, like I told myself I was going to work hard for my dream. And so if I was giving somebody else 50 hours, could I give myself 50 hours? And to be fair, I don't work 50 hours, right? Maybe we're
Yeah.
working 30 hours, but when you are working, like you are completely heads down and you are moving the needle forward on something. And that we also want to show our kids like it's okay to work hard, like it's okay to put your head down. It's okay to be fully focused and it's okay to be responsible for goals that you are committed to and that you have to execute on. And so we just want to be able to be that example for them.
Yeah, that's great. I think it definitely pays off. We have a lot of MBA students. So I want to ask you, you have an MBA. What parts of your MBA education do you think have proven to be the most valuable in your journey as an operator and investor? And how do you continue to learn and grow?
Yeah. So, uh, I want to be authentic.
Sure.
And I want to say that, like, I don't know that the MBA was worth all the student loans. I am thankful I got it, and I feel like after I got it, when I went into work for tech startups, it really helped me understand go-to-market operations and strategies really, really well. It helped me understand different markets, how they needed to be supported, and from a culture perspective, like what made the most sense. Now that I am like 15 years almost out from the MBA, like I am curious to know if I still would have learned the same amount of stuff without having the degree and without having the student loans, right? Because I look at the student loans and I'm like, I'm going to be paying these off forever. Like, did I really need this? I was thankful the day that I got it. I was thankful, the 5 years after that. I think the thing that I found the most frustration was that I had this education, I had these great ideas that I could bring to the table, and nobody was listening to my great ideas. And so that then also like made me sad about the MBA too, right? Because then I was like, I did all of this work and now nobody wants to leverage the work. Like that
Yeah.
in full transparency kind of sucks. But today, I guess, fast forward to today, like I am using that as we are thinking about our own growth at the Reeder, And so as we are building strategy, we can look at it from a different lens, from a marketing lens, and that brings more creativity to the table from an MBA perspective as well, because now we are trying to build something different, right? That is the main goal. How can we build something different that is revenue positive in the bank, that is, creating brand awareness, and that is making people excited to like come in and engage with us, and providing an emotional attachment. And so if we do another webinar in a year from now, I will be able to tell you how I better use my MBA degree for my current business.
Yeah.
But I think right now, not a knock on anybody who got it by any means. Again, I have one too. I just think I wish leaders would be more accepting to people who do get these higher degrees, to bring them to the table, to have very great conversations with them, because these people are learning lots of amazing things that need to be applied in theory and in practice. But it feels like the hands are tied, and then that part makes you question like the education path.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is one of the reasons when I came to Nexford that I absolutely loved this university is because I also got my master's and also had those high tuition bills. And so I understand that. But one thing I love about Nexford is they're breaking the ceiling with that. Their tuition model is so incredibly different. It makes it absolutely more affordable and reasonable to get that advanced degree, to get that respect, that other level of respect that you do get when you have a master's degree. It's not going to open up every door, but you do bring that level of expertise with you by accomplishing that. And I think Nexford does a really great job with their tuition model in making it a reasonable venture where you can learn a lot and put it into your endeavor.
Absolutely.
So,
and I will say, like, Nexford actually seems very different than a typical university as well,
yeah.
And so like the focus around brand recognition, building an audience, like I love kind of all of the events that you put together. Like my university isn't doing that as often, It's like it was traditional Jesuit university, kind of like you came in, you paid your dues, you did your thing and you left. And so I am lacking a ton of that community, right? Like, absolutely, I have some friends that I'm, so deeply connected with, and all of that is great. But I think that Nexford's approach is really revolutionary, which is going to keep it so far ahead of the pack compared to a lot of kind of the other programs that I'm seeing. So I do recommend it. I want companies, especially tech companies or companies that are on the cutting edge of whatever industry that they're on, is to allow the people who have the degrees to come sit at the table and provide valuable insights, because they have so many of them.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to our viewers and get some of their questions in, and then I have a couple more if I can squeeze them in. But let's start with this one. For a business without a product but a service, what sort of marketing approach would you advise?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And we offer services at the Reeder. So we don't have a physical product that we put in somebody's hands. Build your audience, build your community, become the trusted voice for whatever your service is. And that will attract the right types of clients. So our business is done 100% on LinkedIn, and it is through word of mouth on LinkedIn because of the brand that we have built, right? And the brand has taken several years, like close to a decade, to build the brand and get the recognition and develop the community. But I think that that is the best surefire way to do it. And again, it goes back to like understanding your company's one word. Like, what's the thing that you are talking about? What's the thing? What's the strategy behind the service, right? What is the offering? Like, is your offering clear? Can you recite it in 1 to 2 sentences consistently every time somebody asks you, right? And so the more defined you are on your why, the easier it is to then write the LinkedIn posts and build the community and get people excited about your services. And that is marketing. All of that is marketing, right? And when you become a trusted advisor, a subject matter expert, and you have the audience, the leads will come inbound. We thankfully are in a position where we can only have 5 clients a month, right? So we aren't blasting our products and services out on the internet everywhere. We're only working with inbound clients. And then even then, they're going through a very robust vetting process because we want to make sure that they are just as committed as we are. But again, all of that started with the power of the brand and the community. And so I think that is so incredibly important from a marketing perspective.
That's great. Okay, got another one for you. This individual, I think it's the same individual, is a co-founder running an offensive security company that offers security services like VApp, I believe they call it, secure code reviews, and more. So what sort of marketing approach would you advise for people in his line of business? Same thing, basically.
Yeah, well, this is hard without me like understanding the business a little bit more, right? Because what it comes down to, like, yeah, you're doing secure code reviews, but like I don't understand your customer's pain point off the top of my head with this comment to then be able to drill down and say this marketing approach is actually going to be best. But Robinson, if you want to find me on LinkedIn and you want to spend a little bit of time together, like I'm happy to do that. And I can share my thoughts with you after looking at your website. But there's so many different ways that I could answer this. I don't want to answer it incorrectly without having done any research. So let's chat offline and find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. He's going to reach out to you on LinkedIn. Perfect.
Awesome.
There is another question, and I think I'm going to have to ask this individual to rewrite it because I'm not exactly sure. They put, you mean that we should always use AI in all our search. So I'm going to ask for a little bit more clarification on that one so that we can answer it properly. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask you another question that I have. Looking ahead, how do you envision your role evolving at The Reeder? And what long-term impact do you hope to leave? So both in business and for the broader sort of ecosystem of women in tech, which I know is really dear to your heart, and startup operations. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, The Reeder is our business, and so it's going to grow based on how much effort we put into it. And so our goal is to continue building the brand, and we want to now start actually building the brand outside of LinkedIn. So we have a great following on LinkedIn. Devin has something like 95,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'm sitting at like almost 23,000 followers on LinkedIn. And so that is working for us right now, but we haven't mastered YouTube, for example. We haven't mastered Instagram. We haven't mastered TikTok, right? And so for us, it's all about expanding our reach and reaching more audiences and figuring out like the strategy behind that. So that's what 2026 is for sure going to bring for us, along with we also want to host this LinkedIn cohort in a slightly different way. So maybe it's like an in-person event that we do for a day, a workshop, something like that, and really kind of get people together, because the best ideas happen when people are face to face and they're given an opportunity to learn and develop together. And we want to see creatives in a room together and think about like all of the ideas. So for me, like the title is COO, but like I'm doing anything and everything in the business, right? Like you could call me janitor and it would be the same thing, right? And so we are just focused on, where can we take the business? Can it be sustainable? And we have goals for ourselves every year, but we are not in hyper growth mode because our children are young. And because this business is ours, we can make that decision because we don't need funding from outside people, right? And so I am in a very special place to be able to have, all of those components and then be able to move forward. I know a lot of people are not in that same space, but for us, it's like making sure we have enough revenue to pay the bills. We're leveraging some of that same revenue for creative projects that are going to help with brand recognition and building our trusted community. And then for us, it's also not about gatekeeping. So we want to show you what's worked for our business in hopes that it could work for your business as well, right? And that's what's coming out in the newsletter on a weekly basis. And so I couldn't tell you where the business is going to evolve to because I don't know. And I like to keep it open-ended because sky's the limit and anything is possible in this universe, So we'll see.
I love that you said that you're sort of controlling the growth because of where your family's at. I think so many times people go into businesses and they're just ready to try and rocket to the moon and throw everything into it. Tell me a little bit more about sort of your mind kind of set on controlling that growth. How do you control it enough so that you are actually making money, but not putting so much on yourselves that it's going to burn both of you out and hurt your family at the same time? How do you kind of reconcile all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the beginning of or late last year, we did planning for 2025 and we sat down and we were like, how much do we need to make on a monthly basis in order to sustain, pay the bills, sustain the lifestyle, whatever. And so we came up with a number. And we had that number, we padded it with a little bit of extra cushion because it's smart to do that. You just don't know when you're going to need a little bit more money. And we said, okay, like this is our goal. This is our goal for a month. We have a stretch goal. If we get to the stretch goal, amazing. This is our monthly goal. We'll back that into an annual goal. And then this is what we're going to focus on. And so we did that. And in that process, we're like in September and we have hit our annual goal already. And so that has been incredible. And so we know going into next year, we could increase that number significantly, but also we don't want to alter the lifestyle too much. And because we are not looking for outside funding, because we're not sitting here with like massive growth plans, right? Like I'm not throwing a 500-person conference tomorrow. Like that's not in the cards for us. We're too small for that, right? We can throw micro events, but a big event doesn't make sense for us. So kind of knowing what lane you're in and staying in that lane is the thing that has helped us. And then also like, we have two kids, one's in school full-time, the other one is only in school part-time. So like we can't be hyper growth right now. Like we can be realistic and say like, this is maybe something we can strive to in like 3 years and we can build the plan to get there. And then in 3 years we can, put the gas on the pedal and go. But that's not where we're at right now. And because we chose to have these kids and we chose to be intentional in the family, like we are using that intentionality in all aspects of our life to say like, let's get what we need. We don't need more, but if more comes, amazing. But if it gets to be too much, like let's also stop and pause and reevaluate that, because I think the feelings of like being stressed out, being so anxious, like being overworked, being underslept, I don't want to live that life anymore. Like we left corporate America because some of those things were not good for our health.
Right.
Or our mindset. And so let's be intentional with everything that we're doing around the business.
I love that. Looking back at your time in corporate environments, what were some of the biggest frustrations or even barriers that you encountered, and how did those sort of experiences shape your leadership style today? Because you have a very strong leadership style and know exactly the life you want to live and how you want to live it. And I love that. I think it's something that people don't normally take into account when they start a business, which is how do I want to live the way I want to live and what is the way I want to live, instead of just, I got to make a lot of money. Right. Yeah. So what were some of those things in the corporate environments that you were in that kind of frustrated you, that kind of led you to who you are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, so I was in corporate America startup specifically for 15 years before moving over to the Reeder. And a lot of it was just like conflict conflict and contrast within the organization, right? So like to this day, I don't understand why if you have a chief operations officer, it is not that person's job to look across the whole business, to unify systems across the business, to unify handoffs across the business. Like, I don't understand that. Why don't we put more emphasis on, okay, if everybody's going to be using ChatGPT, let's put some guidelines around that for the business, right? You know, I've been going to these marketing conferences, and I'm like, wow, like I'm listening to people say things and they're having the same exact problems that I was having as a CSM when I was going to conferences as a CSM. And it was always the handoff from sales to CS was off. The handoff from marketing to sales is off. The handoff from X to Z is off. Whose job in the organization is it to worry about the handoffs across teams? Because I bet you that person will streamline all processes and create efficiencies in every department, right? And so, you know, like the everybody uses the CRM. Okay. But then when customer success puts notes in, they use a CS tool. When marketing does something, they use a different tool. Like, why? Surely there have to be tools that go across all teams.
Yeah.
Every process can be optimized where we know clearly who is in the responsible seat and who is in the handoff or transition seat. And then we can watch that progress happen all the way through from cold lead to, you know, customer to renewing customer, and then back in that cycle again. And so that was a frustration I lived with a lot. I feel like that is still a frustration that people are living with today as I'm like, you know, going across into the world of marketing. And so that was something that really kind of drove me out to say, I have these great ideas about the business. I've been in this space for a really long time. Like, here's my credibility statement. Here is what I think is going to move the business forward. And I would just have leaders who would not listen, right? And I don't know if it's because I'm a female. I don't know if it's because I'm a minority. I don't know if it's because maybe I'm younger than everybody, right? Like, whatever the reasoning was, the listening wasn't happening, right? And so to me, I always want to be surrounded by people smarter than me because I don't know a lot. I need to learn, right? And so if you're in a constant state of curiosity, that is amazing. And my other constant state is failing forward. So I'm going to fail. It's not a question of whether or not I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. But am I learning from that failure, and am I moving forward, or am I like sitting and dwelling on it and making my life worse, right? And I'm not that. I'm failing forward 100% of the time. And I like failing because it's teaching me what I don't know, right?
Love that.
It's not a knock. It's actually the biggest asset you get in life.
Yeah. And if you're going to own your own business, you're going to fail at something, somewhere, somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest difference between a business owner and a non-business owner is the fact that one of them is willing to take risks. Is the fact that one of them is willing to fail, right? And so if you're willing to go out there and take risks, if you're willing to have conversations with people smarter than you in their area of expertise and say, break my website down, break my landing page down, break my product offering down, tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm not doing right from a third-party perspective with fresh eyes, you will constantly evolve, right? And as you constantly evolve, it's going to help your business. And so I just wasn't seeing that in corporate America. I wasn't seeing people willing to take bigger risks. Like, everybody was so just focused on like maintaining status quo. And at a certain point, you just like look at that and you're like, I'm good. Like, I'm good.
I'm out.
Yeah. Like, you guys keep doing what you're doing, which is like crazy because, again, I'm in a different industry now, completely different group of individuals, but the problem is the same. And nobody is talking about fixing that problem. That's the crazy part.
So I have one final question for you before we wrap up today. I know a lot of people think about starting their own business while they're working full time. And we see a lot of people with sort of that gig economy, right? Doing multiple jobs, kind of a insulation sort of from being laid off. You've had another option to go into. What are your thoughts about someone who's working full time and then wanting to start up their own business? Do they quit their job and dive in full force? Or do you think that it's possible to run two things at the same time until you get big enough to leave the corporate job? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, you're so spot on. I would do the latter. And we did the latter, right? So you want a proof. Well, so for me, I want a proof point before I'm going to go all in that like this is the thing that I should invest my time and energy in, right? And so we launched The Reeder in 2017, and I think the first thing that we were ever commissioned for was like a blog post for $50.
Love it.
Phenomenal start. We got somebody to pay us for the thing that we want to do and are passionate about.
Yeah.
It was chump change, right? Like barely gonna fill a gas tank after taxes, right? And so, okay, what we learned from that was like there's an appetite for this. Let's see how you perform after the post is written, and let's see if we can continue doing this. And so that's why we had The Reeder for a very long time before we decided to go all in. Because then what ended up happening is we grew, and then we had to fell off at a certain point because we couldn't do it anymore because we were both working full-time jobs and we had full-time children, you know? And so at that point, you're like, I have this thing, I've nurtured it to, you know, X amount of dollars. If I had more time, how would it grow? Could it grow?
Right.
And that's a real conversation you have with your reflection in the mirror to say, if I took my skill sets from everything I've learned in corporate America and I doubled down on this thing that I already have, will it grow? And some of it is like, you got to take the leap. If you can buy a lotto ticket and like believe that the universe might, you know, grant you the lotto, you have to then also believe that you can take the leap on your business and the universe might grant you success. You know, always see it through, right? Never stop at what if it doesn't work, right? Take it all the way through. What if it does work? What happens if I do win? Stop on that thought and then, you know, see what happens.
That is such a great place for us to end this today. I want to thank you so much for your time and all your experience that you've shared with us. I think it's been so incredibly helpful to the viewers that we have today, but also the viewers that will watch this down the road on our YouTube channel. So thank you so very much. People can find you on LinkedIn, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we want to give some information on The Reeder and where they can find that.
Oh yeah, so I'm just Shali Reed, Shali Reed, Reed, across the internet, so wherever you want to search. But I am on LinkedIn the most. And then The Reeder is just thereeder.co, not .com, .co. That's a business tactic. .co is cheaper than .com. You will learn that. But yeah, I mean, I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invite to Nicole and to Reagan and to my super excited to have had this conversation with you all.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming today. Appreciate it. Have a great one.
Take care.
Bye.